Hello everyone, Camilla here from Decodable Readers Australia. Today we're going to have a look at the importance of phoneme pronunciations. Now this is the individual sound units that make up words. So for example, the word sat has three sounds, s, at. Now we need to make sure that we teach all of the 44 English speech sounds to our students in a systematic manner. Now here at Decodable Readers Australia, we provide our community with a scope and sequence of sounds. So our first level, our level 1 sounds are SATPIN, SAT, P, I, N. And what we have our educators do is introduce those sounds first to the students. Now we start at that oral level to make sure that each child is producing that sound accurately. Now for most students, they say the sound and they can blend them together. But for your vulnerable learners, it is so important that you have them say that speech sound accurately and perfectly, because it can impact the reading process a little bit later. What I mean by that is sometimes even as adults, we put this little schwa or this voiced sound and vibration onto some of our sounds. For example, p. Now, it's not pronounced like that. It's pronounced without that little sound. It's p. It's a puff of air, an explosive of air out our mouth, and we shouldn't put that voiced sound. So we actually have in our English language voiced and unvoiced sounds. And let's have a look at some of those voiced and unvoiced sounds. Our speech sounds can be divided into two types, voiced and unvoiced. Now those voiced consonants require the use of the vocal cords to produce their signature sound. On the other side are our unvoiced sounds. This is where the voice is not used to produce the sound. It's the airflow, the lips, the teeth, and the upper palate that modify the speech sounds, and our vocal cords are not needed. One of the easiest strategies that I like to use in the classroom is to have students put their two fingers on their voice box. Now, when a sound is voiced, you can actually feel the vibrations, and when it's unvoiced, it will be very still. Now, let's take the sound p. Is actually an unvoiced sound, and it's one of those ones that causes quite a bit of confusion, as adults often try and make that sound at the end to project the sound, but it's actually a voiceless sound. So I want you to put your fingers on your voice box and say p, and you shouldn't feel any vibrations. You can quickly do the other p, and you can feel the vibrations. So it's important to teach kids that we have voiced sounds and voiceless sounds. The reason is that these voiced and voiceless sounds come into the blending process, and if we teach these incorrectly, it can actually be problematic. And I'll tell you some examples very shortly. It's also important to put the focus on how this sound is being produced. Now, we call these the articulators. They can be the mouth, the lips, the tongue, the teeth, even the shape of the mouth. And we need to teach students what's happening when we're producing this sound and make them aware of what is producing that sound. Sometimes it's not our voice, like our sound. We've got our tongue at the top of our teeth, and we're blowing air, and that air is escaping around that tongue to produce that sound. Little mirrors can really be useful in this situation. What the students can do is look at the instructor, see how that sound is being produced, and replicate that into the mirror, and then they can really adjust according to what they see. So having little mirrors in your classroom is a great tool when introducing new phonemes. Now the other thing that I like to do is use these. Now these are from our Sounds of Reading toolkit, and they allow students to amplify that sound that's coming out their mouth and put it directly back into their ear. Now this is great when you've got a small group trying to produce the sound, so the child can really tune into what's happening with their sound production. So if I put this here and I say s, it becomes quite loud directly into my ear. So these are great. I also love these at reading level when they're reading to themselves. It can allow them to tune into what they're saying and not the environmental sounds that are happening in your classroom. These are called our sounds of reading phones, and they can be used at multiple times during a phonics lesson, at sound level, at word and blending level, and also independent reading level to really tune in. Inside our sounds of reading toolkit, we have a handbook for each level, and this handbook really helps educators understand themselves how each sound is introduced. And we have all of the sounds listed in an easy to use table. At the top of the table is the placement of where the sound is made from the front of the mouth going all the way back to the back of the mouth. And down the side is the manner of articulation. How is that sound being produced? Is it voiced or unvoiced? And what's actually happening to that airflow to create that sound? Now, all of this is in our handbooks. Now, as educators, we know we aren't speech pathologists, but we can't just say, well, that's not our job, I'm not going to learn. Our students are sitting in our classrooms, and it's our role and responsibility to do the best we can, because when we know better, we do better. And that's why I love tapping into some of these experts in the field like Alison Clark to teach educators some of the key things that need to be embedded into our classrooms, like the sound pronunciations. The link that I've provided from Alison Clark has her unpacking all of our English speech sounds, the correct manner of articulation and pronunciation, and it's just a great video for all educators introducing the sounds of reading to their class. Before I go, I want to hone in why it is so important not to put that extra voiced schwa sound onto some of our stop sounds. So for example, to say p instead of p, or t instead of t. Now, when we begin the reading process and match these up to letter sound correspondences, those vulnerable students are going to produce whatever you've taught them. So if you've taught them t and p, they start to hear that extra sound, and that can be problematic when blending sounds together. Another example is when I was working with a child and he came to the word jump, and he produced that p sound as p. And when he blended that word together, he actually said jump, jump, jumper. And he added that extra schwa, which completely changed the actual word from jump to jumper. And that's when that sound at the end of some of our sounds can really be problematic, because it can change the whole meaning of the word. So there you have it. Pronunciations of our English phonemes are extremely important to get right from that start. Now, we're not speech pathologists, but in our Sounds of Reading toolkit, our tables have been created by speech pathologists, and I highly recommend tapping in to a speech pathologist that may be connected to your schools, because they are a wealth of knowledge. And if you haven't got one, I know that Alison Clark from Spellphabet constantly puts out amazing work on her website and on her Facebook page, so make sure you tap into that. I'll catch you next time.